Okay, good evening, everybody. In the absence of the mayor, I will call the meeting to order. Lisa, do you want to give us a roll call?
Benson? Here. Brunick?
Here.
Sarda? Here. Hanoff?
Here.
Minor? Here. Mosier?
Here.
Villanueva? Weber?
Here.
Mayor Schramm? City Manager Leon?
Here.
City Attorney Denherder?
Here.
Okay. Without a mayor, I'd like you guys to find someone who can serve as,
He's walking in.
he's right here.
I apologize.
We started without you.
Yep, we're on the work session. I apologize for being late. Thank you. Roll call's done. Any public appearances? Anyone that would like to make a comment to the City Commission? That's something that's not on the agenda. Seeing no movement to the podium. Move on to the budget discussion, 2025 CIP budget. Amy, would you mind taking over?
I'd love to. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the commission. Just so the public's aware, next door in 113, we have Planning Commission going on. So just to make sure folks are in the right place, you can be in either place and you can move back and forth, but we have Planning Commission going on at 5:30 as well. So if you commissioners or public has specific questions for Dave Mingo, you may want to hold them. But his work is important tonight for your meeting later on this evening. So we're going to talk tonight about the capital improvement plan, and I just love this time of year. I love it even more when we have a group of 9 commissioners who've been through it before, because that makes it a lot easier on us as staff. Commissioner Minor pointed out the nice picture we have of Labyrinth that's up at Westside Park, which is really metaphorically also very much like our budget. We wind around for a few months thinking and trying to figure it out before we kind of find out where our hearts are, and we might make some twists and turns along the way, but eventually we come to the point where we're ready to present a budget to you. So tonight's portion of the budget is what I like to call the stuff and the things. So tonight we're not talking about salaries, we're not talking about health insurance, electric bills, operations. We're talking about the equipment, the infrastructure, the projects, that type of plan. So that's what you have before you. And we have, as you know, a 5-year plan. Some of the things have been in there for a long time. Some of those things are very new. When things do not need replaced, or we feel they continue to serve us well, we move them further out in the budget because we don't believe we have to fix things that aren't broken. Sometimes we preemptively replace equipment and things that we think are past due their time. And also you'll see some new things here that either jumped us up and surprised us this year, or we think are necessary in the upcoming year with the information we have today. Mostly talking about 24 and 25, but I'm always, that will bleed into conversations about the long-term future as well. So I would appreciate it if you all are keeping in mind not just the budget, but also our strategic plan. So thinking about the vision and mission statement, all the things that impact our decision-making, trends that drive our decisions, and the values we have in our organization. And that's how we deliver the strategic or the CIP plan to you, and what we'd like you to be thinking about as we have this discussion. So I'm going to go through line by line, and we're going to discuss in detail every single item in the, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to give you some overviews and some highlights, and then find out what you want to talk about. Some of these things are have been talked about for a long time, and you might have some things for me that you want to talk about or put in the budget. Before we begin, though, I want to talk about inflation a little bit because it's still an issue for us, and we've recognized in our world that some things have gone down in cost post-COVID, but we still have an inflationary problem. Lots of the projects and equipment are really coming in a lot higher than we expect. I had a conversation today about the street sweepers. Street sweepers are used really hard, and they're equipment that incorporates water, and they don't last very long. When I got to the city of Yankton, so that was over 10 years ago, true, but they were about $160,000. We were awarding them for somewhere around that neighborhood. What we're planning now is it's over $400,000. So I mean, it's the same sweeper, and it doesn't sweep any faster. It's not like a iRobot where we can just, it's not like a Roomba. We wish it were, but it isn't. So there's those types of issues. For example, we're going to talk about a fire engine tonight, and in 2005, we purchased an engine 1. That'll mean something to Commissioner Villanueva and some of you, but engine 1 was $294,000. In 2011, engine 3 was $391,000, and what we're currently budgeting, and that's just an estimate to replace engine 1, is $875,000. And I'm sure there's some upgrades and new technology, but it's still going to do basically the same thing, go to the fire and be a tool for us. But it's something we need to have as a community to protect our citizens. So we're facing these issues, and we have been lucky because we've grown and we do have more revenue. I don't think our revenue has grown at the same rate as inflation. To put it more in my terms, I call it the family size bag of potato chips philosophy. So we buy potato chips at our house, and it seems like either I'm getting bigger or the bags are getting smaller and more expensive. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I feel like we're having to buy more bags of chips to get the same amount of potato chips. Otherwise, they're kind of a very small family serving at our house. Okay. Any questions before we take off here with our first set of discussions, which will be City Manager's Office, Finance, and Information Services, and Community Development? Okay. So some of these departments don't have a lot of capital. They're small departments, and we're not planning to purchase any capital. One of the things I do want to mention is in Information Services, you can see that not necessarily in 2025, but in an out year, we're still looking at that replacement of our financial system. We've talked about that for a number of years. We wanted to work through a transition in finance officers so that our finance officer was heavily involved in that discussion and making those decisions. She and Dwayne and her staff are looking at different types of software programs now, and they're doing demos with companies, so we're in that planning phase for that. That's really important for our staff, but also important in our budget process, because we're also looking at adding a budget component, so this becomes less of an Excel puzzle and something that might be easily more inputted by departments and have a little more user-friendly usability. But so that's still on the docket. But there's always some IT changes and things that need to be upgraded, and you'll see that reflected in Information Services. In Community Development, I just bring forward that in this budget year, we're looking at that comprehensive plan. So that process is ongoing, so you'll see a lot of that happening here this year. And that also includes the strategic plan that we talked about, RDG helping us update when they get towards the end of wrapping up the comp plan. So both things will be important for us as we do some long-term visioning and planning in the community. Human Resources doesn't have a lot of capital.
Amy,
There-
could I just ask a question quick?
Yes.
On the AS system, I see you have it, you said it's in an out year, but they're already looking at systems now. So do you really anticipate it's going to be 2026 before we accrue that cost?
I'll let Lisa and Dwayne answer that. I think they do want to spend some time on it, but
The software providers we've talked to estimated a 9 to 12 month process. So we haven't pulled the plug yet, so we'd still like a little bit more time on that side of things. But I don't see us going live for almost a year.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
talking a little bit about police, you see both this year and next year, we'll be updating video cameras and body worn cameras. Those things now, we can, I think, just assume are part of our ongoing equipment costs. So I don't think those are going away. As technology changes, too, the equipment becomes outdated quickly. Those are used, 24 hours a day. So they're also used pretty hard for a piece of technology. So I think, we are all comfortable that we can absorb those, that we're going to have to absorb those costs for video cameras in the police department. And there may be other uses as well for body-worn cameras in our organization going forward as well. Patrol cars, of course, are something that we try to budget for regularly. The license plate reader, we're under the understanding that we'll be receiving a grant for that. That hasn't been announced yet, but that won't be pursued if that isn't something that we're able to have a grant for. And we talked about that earlier in the year.
Excuse me, does the 130 buy 3 vehicles? I'm just curious for the vehicle replacement.
No, that's 2 vehicles. Yes. It used to be, and we're also going to 4-wheel drive vehicles now, so those are better for our staff in terms of getting around in inclement weather, but of course come with a higher cost. One thing that is not here in your capital, but we're looking to spend a little capital on, we'll probably be able to absorb it in the PD budget, is, as many of you know, Marietta Spracco retired after a long time. She sits there in the front of the PD. We're looking at ways we can make that space a little more welcoming for the public, as well as for folks that need some privacy and need to speak with officers. So I don't know, Greg Homestead is kind of our... He's kind of the guy with the magic wand when it comes to how can we make our buildings serve us the way we need them to without spending a lot of dollars. But we'd like to make that a little bit more of a reception area, but of course it also has to be secured. So we'll be working with Chief Foote as well as with his new hire going forward to sort of reinvent that space a little bit more for that individual. So I just wanted to bring that forward as well. Any questions on police? If not, I want to talk a little bit about fire. Generally speaking, there's nothing too out of the ordinary in fire capital. So we are working on trying to replace cyclically personal protective equipment and those types of things. The big number there you see is for engine 1, replacement engine 1, and I have some statistics on that. The real question there is the fact that once we make a decision, we could be almost 2 years out from obtaining that piece of equipment. So while it is a necessary piece of equipment, we do have an engine. The engine is a 2005, I believe, yes. For those of you interested, it has 589 hours on it, little over 8,000 miles, 8,100 miles. It's regularly used. And since the first of last year, the first of 2023, more than one engine has been used on at least 29 instances. So want to talk a little bit about that purchase. It's a major purchase. I say that because it's also something that could be moved to a different budget year, but then we're 2 years from then, from probably obtaining it, and probably more dollars. It's also one of those things that we need to think about with the idea in mind that if we have a sales tax issue, whether imposed upon us or something unforeseen happens, cutting a big piece of equipment like that is a relatively easy way to get to a specific budget number. And I don't say that because this isn't an important piece of equipment. It is. The current one we have is, getting long in the tooth, so to speak, having, it's old, but it's still usable. You also know we've taken really good care of our equipment, so there's those types of considerations as well. We could store a second truck. There's the option of selling an existing truck once we purchase a new one to another agency. We don't always get a lot of dollars for those, but we could keep it for a while and decide if we want to sell it, or if we can sell it right away. Mostly, though, what we want to get to the fact tonight is whether that stays in the budget for this year or not. So I don't know if you have specific questions for Chief. He's here, or if you just have thoughts or ideas about how you feel about that.
I guess I would like to,
That is paid off in 2028. I don't have the exact number.
I don't know if Dwayne is able to pull that out or not. We can certainly get that number to you, Commissioner Hunhoff, if we don't have it today.
I've got two things. One, I did not hear Commissioner Hunoff's question.
He was asking how much debt we had on Station 2.
Okay,
And we don't have that exact amount, but we'll try to find it, and if we can't find it, we'll get it to you.
okay. And then secondly, I'd like to see it stay on the budget. But the question that I do have is about if plans right now, we do not know if we're going to sell an existing engine or not. And then also that, with inflation, with everything that has gone up, I'm just wondering what the resale market, if that has changed, if we have an idea of what that possibly could be. I know that's a bit of a grab in the dark, but it's just a question that comes to my mind.
Chief, if you want to go to the microphone, you certainly can. My understanding is Chief would like to keep that engine, and partly because we probably won't get a lot for engine 1, and partly because they'd like to have another apparatus. But
as much as I'd like to say, because I think fire engines are God's vehicles, and that their resale value is quite high, it's just not. And I couldn't estimate what a 2005 would go for. If we got $100,000 out of it, I'd be surprised. And again, I'm only taking a shot in the dark. I look occasionally at other departments' apparatus that's also well taken care of, and there just isn't a lot that you can get out of it.
Yeah. So that's always been difficult for me because we've taken such good care of our equipment. What you can get back for it, maybe we could still get some life out of it, but it is of that age. No matter how well you take care of it, it's 20 years old now, so.
You get about 0.5 ISO points for a reserve apparatus, which isn't a lot, but I guess in the grand scheme of things with your insurance savings, it could mean something, but I don't know if that offsets the resale value.
About how many miles has it accumulated?
8,900 miles, I think is what I.
Yep, I have that here, Chief. Nope, 8,101 miles.
81, sorry about that, yep.
I kind of look at the amount of building that we're doing and the new hotel, or not hotels, but apartments and everything, all the growth. I think we should leave it in the budget, but having a backup and maybe growing the fire department a little bit, population going up in a lot of houses.
I do have that outstanding debt for the current fire station. It's paid off in 2028. Current balance is $745,000.
Yeah, through the last payment, it'll be 851,000 if we pay it off in term.
We can always circle back to commission and talk about this because I feel like it's hard to make, you can make observations and have initial reactions, but it's hard to make sort of total decisions when you haven't talked through other parts of the budget too. So we can talk about it for as long as you like, but we can also move ahead.
I did have one more quick question. Chief, the 875, is that approximately the same bid spec for the new engine as the previous engine?
As far as the,
Equipment, options, et cetera?
that's just the engine. That's just the engine. That doesn't include the equipment. The other equipment and things like that are, certainly we'll move some of it over, but it's also what's been budgeted for in the CIP as well.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll move forward from there, and we can always circle back. If you have other thoughts or you think of something else you want to talk about in terms of fire. And I don't know if Chief has to leave early, if there's fire practice tonight or fire training tonight, so, but hopefully we'll be on to our next meeting before he needs to leave. So we can certainly get questions for him in the future too. Nothing a lot this year in engineering, but of course, always in streets, we have a lot of equipment needs and things we need to talk about. So in 2025, we're looking at doing some replacement of what I call the backbone of the city. So there's a couple pieces of equipment that are need to be continually operable and need to be in good condition and reliable. So one of those is the motor grader. We have that in the budget plan for next year. A loader as well. So we're purchasing one that in 2024 that we tried to purchase in 2023, but able to purchase it in 2024 and in 2025. So those are two pieces of equipment that we just absolutely cannot live without. And they're used hard and they're used in a lot of conditions. So we want to make sure we're talking about keeping those into the CIP. There is a vehicle replacement, a pickup replacement, and also then that street sweeper that I talked about earlier that I wish we didn't have to buy. They're important pieces of equipment as well, but it seems like we thought we used to be able to replace them. We thought we could replace them a lot less often than we are ending up having to, and that's just my experience, not just in this Public Works Department, but every Public Works Department, because it's just the nature of what the work that the sweeper does. So anything you want to pull out in streets or talk about? We used to have streets and snow and ice. Commissioner Sarda will remember that. We've combined those now because a lot of the equipment was multi-use and it didn't make a lot of sense not to. So we've combined those in the budget. Okay. City Hall doesn't have a lot of capital typically. We do have, in this year finishing up our electrical project. We also have some building remodeling that we talked about last year that we'd like to do in City Hall. We believe we are able to probably put together another office space as well as do something different with our meeting rooms. Some of you have experienced the jockeying around that we do when we have multiple meetings happening. And also, we have some people that don't really have any private working space, so it'd be nice to have some more workspaces as well. Also, the break room in City Hall, if you haven't been in that, I would like to take you into it so you could experience that. We keep the breaks short for those that use the break room. It's utilitarian and it's clean, but it really needs a facelift. It isn't somewhere where you'd probably want to sit for a long time and relax. It's very small. There's a very small table and basically just a microwave, fridge, and small counter space. So it's not really conducive to work breaks either for our people. So we want to talk about that. Our building is old, and so we have to be a little bit creative, and we're working with staff to talk through that. But we do like our building, and it's serving us, so we think that it makes sense to continue to make some investments. I want to talk a little bit about traffic control. We have always have signal upgrades and those types of things, signal replacement and traffic control. We're budgeting a little bit more. So while we aren't talking about our human capital and our salaries and our benefits and those types of things tonight, the conversations bleed a little bit together, especially when we're talking about having newer employees. So many of you knew and know Bob Reichen, and he's retired. And so we have a new staff person who's going to take over signals and traffic control. He can do many things, and he'll learn many things, and over time he'll gain all the knowledge and experience that previous employees had. But right now that's not there, and so there will be needing to be some probably bigger investment, larger investment in working with contractors to help us get that work done. And that's just the nature of when we have staff turnover. So some of that we anticipate will be done by outside entity, and as Mr. Stewin, Sean Stewin gets more comfortable with those things. And so that's part of the reason why you see changes there.
Amy, what's in here, I guess I don't know how much of it's our responsibility, but obviously with the opening of another school, is there any really big costs associated with any traffic signals, school crossing signals, anything like that? Or is that kind of already built in here because we anticipated that?
Well, and Adam can talk a little further about that. So the school is going to look a little bit more into what the impact on Penina will be. We didn't believe that if there was a school crossing that it would be there, nor do we believe any different traffic patterns needed to exist on Penina, just based on where the school is positioned. So it's a little hard to see now, but you're actually accessing from a local street. You do have to, many people are going to turn off Penina, but you're accessing the Trailhead Learning Center from a local street. So it's a little bit different than if you were to be crossing Penina, so to speak, or that was the school zone. The school zone, my understanding, will be internal at the Trailhead Learning Center and around the Trailhead Learning Center on the local streets. So there may be some type of crossing, and I don't know the name of that street that's right in front of the entrance, but our city engineer will. How'd I do?
You did well. Now I got to think about what the name is. Highland Drive, maybe?
That sounds right.
This budget, school crossings in this particular budget is for maintenance purposes. Like city manager described, at this time, there's no planned school zone traffic control associated with the new Trailhead Learning Center, so.
Okay. Airport has its own capital needs. Lots of area to cover there in terms of mowing, so we do have a mower listed as part of the capital improvement plan, a loader blade, as well as replacing a UTV, and you'll see some of those throughout the budget this year, the UTV vehicles. Our employees use those a lot. And they have become a very useful piece of equipment. Absolutely necessary? I don't know. Certainly know in parks they become a very nice tool, and we're going to talk about it for wastewater as well. So you can go in between buildings rather quickly and take some equipment with you rather than hauling it yourself physically or getting to pick up and driving around and then having to. So it helps us get into the smaller workspaces. So that's all budgeted for airport this year. Those projects and the equipment we're responsible for. The next section of the capital is the projects that we have federal FAA assistance with as well as state assistance with. So we share in the cost of those with the FAA and the state. Our percentage is relatively low, a little over 15%, what we're responsible for. And so we have a big project coming up. That's replacement of the terminal apron at $1.6 million. We also have going on now engineering associated with that. So those are very expensive projects, although we probably get the most in terms of grant percentage for those projects. So it seems like we're never going to be done with the airport. I think that's probably true.
The number that's reflected is the total, and then we have to calculate our percentage, or is the number reflected?
If you take a look down, you'll see, the federal funds, state funds, and local funds.
I see. Okay, thank you.
There's still big dollars that we're responsible for, but when you look at the size of those projects, and just for airport-loving people, a lot of people have a misconception of the airport that it's, for pilots to buzz around and have fun at, and there's some of that, but the airport is actually part of federal infrastructure. It's part of our infrastructure. It's also part of our economic development, and it's also part of our transportation system. So it is a very important piece to having a sort of complete community, and for the size of our community, I would challenge anyone to find a nicer, more well-run airport than what we have. And so we've done a great job. We also have had a number of people on our airport board for a number of, I'm sure some of them have served decades, that have been instrumental in helping us lead in terms of funding and acquiring funding, and being in leadership, and some that have been involved on the State Department of Aeronautics, the Aeronautics Commission. So all that has served us really well at Chan Gurney. Let's talk a little bit about the center. We've been talking about the parking lot there at the center for a number of years. We take a look at it, and based on its condition, we make a determination upon whether or not it needs to be replaced. And so we've pushed it yet again, thinking that it's looking pretty good right now. Also, you'll see in the out year that the center has a vision and is talking about long-term what they're going to do with their facility. Certainly will be part of those discussions. I don't think that's in the short term, but I'm sure that will come up as we start our comprehensive planning process and our strategic planning process. So that's what we have for the center. When it comes to the library, we do have our usual, or should I say typical capital planned. I've also put in an additional amount of $50,000 into the new library line item, and that's not going to build us a new library, but I want to talk to you about that. We have had a lot of success, surprising success, I would say, with the surveys that were done. We have well over 1,000 results to tabulate and then do analysis on, and that's happening now. I'm guessing by the end of the summer, we'll know where people that responded to the survey are, if they feel strongly about a new facility, a remodeled facility, a location, will they help pay for it, et cetera, et cetera. At that point, once we know that information, I think we're at a crossroads here on our strategic plan, and it feels eerily familiar from a few years ago when I was like, are we really going to take this jump off the high dive here and do this? But we'll be in a position to work through the community with what are we going to do? So whatever that is, I think we're going to need some professional assistance developing a concept and developing a rough estimate. Now, that can be something that you as a city believe, as a commission, think is a responsibility of the city solely. You could certainly ask the foundation or the Friends, hey, would you chip in? I put $50,000 into that line. I don't know if that will cover it. I'm thinking that would get us a concept, not engineering for anything, but would get us to a concept and a rough cost, so we might know a ballpark estimate of whatever it is that the community tells us and the library board that they'd like to see. So we can certainly talk about that. Dana's here. We have representation from the library board and foundation here as well, I believe. So they may have comments or things they want to share with you. But to me, in speaking with Dana, that's sort of the next logical step. Doesn't have to be the next step. We can sit on whatever we find out. We're going to have a lot of angry library people, I think, if we do. But so just want to open that up for a little discussion and direction.
Amy, question? Go ahead. Have we ever done a study for the library in the past before? Like what we're doing now? Has one been done before?
Well, I believe that they had, at one point, they had,
2009, I think.
come on up.
No, that's okay.
We'd love to hear from you.
It's my understanding, Mary Pat Byerly, I'm on the Board of Trustees for the library.
I'm dropping your mic already.
That's okay, I'm getting
Make a great speech before we do a mic drop.
It's my understanding that in 2009, Mount Marty Business Department, perhaps faculty, did a survey asking the community what they would like. And everybody read it, looked at it, and put it on the shelf. And so that's all we know. And that's why we went to University of South Dakota, to the GRB. They're nonprofit, nonpartisan. We did not want an engineering company or an architectural firm to do this. We wanted somebody who was totally unbiased. And they're closing the survey, I believe, this week, and I think as of Monday, then I think it was 1,400, which for a political survey, you figure, that's a very good turnout, it really is. And they worked very hard, the GRB worked very hard to include people who never use the library, shall I say, right? And as we have all talked to people, we've said, well, I don't use the library. Oh, well, then we really want you to take the survey. We want to make sure it's a cross-section. We will get that report, and I believe it'll be presented in a public meeting.
Yes.
In August, yes? And then it comes back to you to decide.
Is there
We
a,
have never had a survey this
And
comprehensive.
I'm not sure we've had a rendering or an image. I have not seen that if we have.
to this point through the 1,400, do we have any kind of a clear favorite in terms of location?
They're hiding the data. They're going to do it up this summer and then give it to us.
So, I mean, that makes a difference as to whether what the community wants is a remodel, or maybe it's a completely new facility, and is it somewhere where we already have property or somewhere where we don't? I mean, all those things will play into the discovery of what that could be. So to me, that's a logical next step. Of course, if the survey comes back that, yes, everybody loves a certain location and a certain type of facility, but no one's willing to pay for it or participate in it, then I think we have another answer, then there's no need to move forward. I'm not guessing that's going to be the case if we have 1,300 people that have, 1,400 people that have something to say.
And I should mention one other thing. We are in the process this summer, the board and staff are visiting comparable libraries. We're going to be doing site visits to Norfolk and Columbus, and then one in Minnesota.
Mary Pat, I'm sorry, could you go to the point? They're recording this, and it's hard for the people online to hear. Thank you. Sorry.
We will be, staff and board members will be traveling to 3 comparable libraries who have done recent new or renovated facilities. And we just completed a 2-page survey, a site survey that we will take with us, asking questions like, how did you sell this? How much did it cost? How long did it take? What's the new stuff in here that everybody loves? Questions like, what was your library patron number before you did it and then 2 years after you did it? Was there a growth in usage? So that we're working on it, but we are waiting for the GRB to do its thing. Okay.
And I did invite, Mary Pat, I did invite the commissioners to go along if anyone wants to. So they can get some ideas. And I've encouraged folks, and I'll encourage the commission as you're going about your summer travels, swing by the library, whether they're brand new or not so new, you can always get some good ideas. And I've actually had some folks from the Thrive Board that have been visiting different places on the way back from graduations and weddings and taking pictures of the library and sending them to me so I can get them to Dana, because we just don't know what we don't know. So, if we get to a point of a community designing process, it'd be nice to have some things to look at and to consider. So
I think it's important to keep going on this. After we've spent the money to collect the data, we should probably continue on. If the data says we should continue on.
how does the commission feel about the responsibility of that? Whether that should be our responsibility to, do a concept and some basic engineering. We, of course, won't do it in a tunnel. We won't exclude, the library board is its own entity, so, we'll certainly have other folks involved versus asking the foundation or the Friends. And before you answer, I'll tell you how I feel about it. Once we know where the survey stands, the Friends and the foundation probably have another job to do, and that's starting to raise money in the private sector. But that's just my opinion. I'd like to know how you guys feel about that.
That's, I guess, why I originally turned on my mic to begin with, and it's a natural lead into that. My question was going to be earlier, what has been the discussion of the Friends of the Board? Are they fully intending to think that they have a role to play in this to help offset the costs? Or are they even or have they not even gotten that far?
We haven't talked to them about it yet. Commissioner Mosier, since I present this budget to you in end of July, it's before we're going to know the results of the survey. So what I wanted to do is put the number in, and then, of course, Dana knows the numbers there, visit with them and say, depending upon how our discussion goes, I think they'd certainly be amenable. I think that there's a point where the hope would be, just like with Dive and Yankton, that there's a community fundraising effort, and they're going to be doing those types of things. And certainly, ultimately, if we hire an architect or engineer to do specifications or design something new, we wouldn't, it'd be a city project, and we wouldn't ask them to pay for the engineering study. Probably a good chance whoever we would hire to do a concept, that would be someone who would be very close already to a project and probable firm to be working with us on design. If we get to that point, lots of ifs.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of what I was thinking, is it seems to work very well in this community, and I think, you reference a really good example of Dive in Yankton. To me, my thought tonight is those public-private relationships and that community buy-in and having a say and being able to be a part of that process is what makes it successful. So my thought, and I know I'm just one commissioner, would be that it would be encouraged to have that kind of be more of a public-private project that we look at.
I would agree. I think the other entity that maybe we should have a conversation with is the county. Just in that, the county does share some in the library, and it is a community. It's not just folks from inside city limits that utilize the library. I'd like to, would think that it would be beneficial to the entire project to ask the county also.
That's a really good point. We do make an ask, as you know, as you mentioned, they provide some funding for a number of different facilities, library being one of them. We will increase that ask in light of this project.
I guess one thing I would like to point out is just when we're talking about fundraising and asking the public to support things, if we ask 3 times in 5 years for the public to help support a library, the big one is the last one, and if they've given to a smaller one in year 1 and year 2, they might not be so inclined to ask help with the big one. So just keep that in mind, that this part of the project is going to be the less expensive part of the project, comparatively to building or remodeling or expanding, whatever ends up happening, if it ends up happening.
Yeah. And I mean, they are participating in the costs of everything because we're using their money, their tax dollars, their sales tax dollars, some from other places, but it's their money as well. So as we go through any community project, we have to bear that in mind, but it's also our money. We're all living here, but it is their dollars, so to keep that in mind as well. Anything else on library before we go to parks? There was a library and park partnership last week. If you didn't make it, I didn't make it, and now I wish I would have gone to the party in the park. There was snakes and all kinds of things. And donuts, I hear. What else could you need? So, let me get to my parks page here. We have a playground equipment replacement. I'm not going to talk about everything in parks because there's just too much. But we have playground equipment replacement. In 2024, we're planning for that to be in Crockett Park. 2025, the plan is Morgan Park. And 2026, the plan would be whatever we're going to call Westbrook Estates Park, if that becomes a park. So there is some discussion about the green space that we have there, and some community members that are interested in having a park in their neighborhood, which who wouldn't be? That's a broader discussion than we'll have tonight because you have to take care of a park too. But that's what we're just planning ahead in capital. But I thought I'd give you a picture of that. It seems like we have replaced a lot of park equipment, and we have. Todd and the staff have done a great job with that. But we have to keep up with that. So those are the plans for park equipment, playground equipment. We also have the pickleball conversion that we're working on, and so we need to do a little bit of a different budgeting number here. It gets a little bit complicated, but we do believe that we have enough dollars budgeted for the pond upgrade or pond change order and the pickleball conversion, but we did not include some of the retainage we have on the contract. So we're going to have to change the numbers for West Side Park. And I realize that that's on the next page, but I just want to talk to you about that in a little bit in advance. Because we're not quite there yet with that. Also, what we plan for West Side Park may or may not happen this year for pickleball courts because we're having a little bit more of a difficult time getting quotes on things than we'd like, and the quotes we're getting are a little higher than we'd like them to be on fencing right now. Todd's working hard on that. We're running out of time to do an improvement this year. So we'll keep you posted, but those numbers will probably change, which is city manager talk for get higher. So we can talk more about that as well. But just to finish up here, I made an error in my visiting with you on the Triple B, and Dwayne's going to help me talk about that. I did not plan for garlands and bows and banners the way I should have. Banners are accounted for in the BBB, but the garlands and bows were not included in the Triple B. So the amount you see there comes from as a transfer from the Triple B. And I mean, it's Christmas decorations, and we all know how I feel about that. So that's important. I thought maybe you'd want to talk a little bit about West Side Park Pond in light of the fact that it has water in it that's staying in it. Drove past there. I have to drive. I'm driving past there like a stalker now. It's like, is it still there? Is the water still there? Is it still there? It was tonight. So Les and his crews are watering the grass there to get the grass to grow. So hopefully it's going to be pretty hot to grow grass, but hopefully we can get some grass to grow there. And like I said, we think we have enough there for what we estimated for pickleball as well as for the increase in the liner. We did not account for roughly $75,000 in retainage for both contracts, both engineering and our contractor, which we'll owe when we release the project. And then, like I said, pickleball may be a little bit higher than we anticipated and may or may not be accomplished this year. So you see money in out years in West Side Park. All that's part of the broader, bigger plan. I think it'll be a beat before we take on another project after pickleball in West Side Park. We have other parks we need to tackle. But we did talk about at one point in the future, it'd be great to have an upgraded restroom facility or maybe 3-season shelter or something like that to enjoy in the park. But probably I'm thinking we'll turn some attention to some of our other facilities because, as you know, we've had other facilities requested. We have a group talking about amphitheater, music space down in Riverside Park. We have a group talking about BMX, pump track biking. Am I saying that right? So talking about that kind of facility. So we'll probably take a break unless you tell us otherwise from improvements in West Side Park after we get through these.
I've got one thing, if I could, with the amphitheater, the railings down at Riverside Park. Did we move that from 26 out to 28? Is that how I'm reading that?
Let me go back and look here. I'm sure you are reading it right. And I'm thinking it was probably moved because we're not sure what we want to do overall with music spaces. We talked about in the comp plan and the lawn plan doing something different with, I shouldn't just say music spaces, but entertainment type spaces in the park. And so do you want to invest in the railings in light of knowing something new or something different might happen? Or are those two separate projects and we can move that back into the budget as well and do that sooner rather than later? That would be the reasoning, but it's up to you guys what you want to see happen there.
Yeah, that's been something that I've been asked by a number of people in the years that I've been on the commission about railings at the amphitheater, and it's a nice ask. And at some point, I would like to see us do something with that, or unless that is going to get changed, but if we don't have something we know it's going to get changed, it would be nice to have the railings at the amphitheater, just because I've been asked numerous times about it, and I think it would be beneficial for the community.
Is it defined what those railings would be or what it would look like? Because right now there's one down the center, right? Or is there none at all?
Two down the outsides.
Nothing in the
There'd be-
center?
There's two down the outsides now, Todd, and what we would need is
If you do it two down the middle.
two down the middle. Yes. So my personal opinion on the amphitheater is that there's more probably that needs to be addressed there than just the railings would be helpful. And so if you guys want to invest in that, by all means. I find it very steep as well, and that's neat, but it's also seems, even with the railing, I don't know if we'd build it that way today. I don't know if we'd build it in that configuration, but the facility's in pretty good shape too, so maybe we work with it till we do know. As we move into comprehensive planning, will music/entertainment spaces be something that the community puts forward onto your plates? I would think it's possible. Then it becomes more of a clear vision that it's something that's going to be put in front of you. But probably there's a good argument for the fact that it might be far enough into the future that you might want to invest.
Yeah, I know the questions that I've had, or the comments that I've had, have just had to do with accessibility, just in aid and something to hold on to, not just on the outside, but in the center of the amphitheater. Also, I know it is steep, which I think is part of the justification for the railings, something to hold on to during those events down at the amphitheater.
I would echo that. I've had that question time and again since I've been on the commission, and I believe we had worked with a group that was going to do some fundraising. They never did any fundraising. It might have been 2020.
Yes,
the
we
COVID
heard
year.
that too,
Yeah.
but I don't think that ever happened.
But if I recall, there were issues, and I'm digging deep in my memory, Todd Larson, about putting up the railing because we were going to have to, it wasn't going to be just, let's drop some railing in because the concrete is solid. It was going to take a lot of concrete. Did you want to talk about that? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. Thank you.
That's why they're here tonight, is to be put on the spot.
Sorry.
Yeah, you get into accessibility with railings, you also have to have the right width of step on each side of the railing. So the steps right now, I do believe, are 22 inches wide, and that's what you're going to need on each side of the railing when you put it in. So it's going to be a matter of, it's the big seats that are poured, and then there's little steps that weren't poured that are formed and set there. So you're going to have to take out what's there, put in the railing, and then get those preformed steps for each side of the railing. And then the question becomes, do you have gaps in the railing? Or when you're on a side, and there's no crossing over. So it's going to take a little bit of, if that's the route we go, keeping what's there currently. So yeah, it wasn't a simple drop a railing in.
Thank you. I do think it's worth it to try to, we keep pushing it and keep pushing it. And our population down there that's attending concerts is not getting any younger. And that has been a concern that has been brought to my attention, and I share that concern. So I'd like to see it sooner rather than later.
I would agree with that, too.
Okay, I'm hearing we have some adjustments on the amphitheater railings to make here. Not a lot of capital in the Huther Family Aquatic Center. There'll be a day, so I just want to put on your horizon, where something breaks, or we want to include an amenity maybe, or add an amenity, or something new comes out that you can include in an aquatic center that we have room for. So there'll be a day when we have more capital. We do have this year some additional changes to the HVAC system. And it's really what it is an installation upgrade to help us with our winterization. We had some levels we could choose from. when we designed, and I wish we would have gone with a higher level of installation, a higher level of insulating the HVAC when we built, but knowing that we don't always have the harshest of the winters, but makes our opening and our springtime a lot easier having that, we believe. So that's why that's in the budget. And that's in the budget actually for this year.
One quick question, Todd. What's the anticipated year for the payoff on the debt on the Huther?
We'll have to go to probably Lisa or Dwayne on that.
It was a 20-year loan, 20-year bond originally, I think 20-year? Sound right?
I don't have the final payment date. I don't have that schedule handy real quick, but I'll pull it up in the interim. Our first date that we can buy down the debt is 2025 in December. And that's kind of why you see the shading change from white to blue. That gives us an opportunity to buy down the debt at least a $300,000 increment. However, right now, we're earning more money in interest than what we're paying on the debt. So that might be a commission decision at that time. Does it make sense to buy down the debt, or does it make sense to continue to build, earn interest on that money? But I'll get you the date on that final payoff.
Anything else on the Huther? Otherwise, I realize when I look at the clock, we've got about a half an hour, and you probably want a little bit of a break between. So I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit here. Marne Creek, we have a truck replacement. You can see that there. We always have some numbers in there for land acquisition. We don't have anything planned right now in terms of a site or anything like that we need to acquire, but that certainly came in handy when we needed to work with property owners when we had the flooding. Bridge and street fund, we do have a number of bridges that we're addressing. We have 23rd Street Bridge and 2025 with some 2025 I believe is engineering, and then the upgrade happens in 2026. Cedar Street we have, sorry about that, Cedar Street we have budgeted as well for replacement, so we do have some big grant dollars coming for that. That's estimated to be constructed 2025 at $2.9 million. So we are continuing to invest there in our infrastructure. We did make a big investment in the Meridian Bridge, as you all know, this past year with the column repair, and so we'll continue to allow us to be able to utilize that as a pedestrian bridge. A future commission is going to have to talk about when is the right time to make that assessment on the bridge, because that will really be the first step on the road to that project, is going to be assessing the condition. There aren't a lot of changes, there's not a lot of capital in dispatch for 2025, so I'm not going to talk about that unless there's something you all want to bring up. But of course, there's a lot in water utility. So I'm going to kind of go through this quickly, although it's a lot of money. You also have the ability to tell me you didn't hear enough information and you would like to meet tomorrow night. We have reserved tomorrow night at 5:30 as well if you want to meet again tomorrow night. So water utility, we still have some work to do. You have a little chunk there of projects that are highlighted. When we updated the water plant, we had to continue to operate the water plant. So there's still some things in the 1972 side that we need to upgrade. We feel confident that we're at a point with the water plant that we can do those. So the basin rehab, the coating, the well coating in the wet wells. Those are all types of things that we didn't include in the original project, and so we want to make sure we are putting those in place. I'll talk about the street projects in light of when we get to the 506, because most of them include some work with the water or wastewater and with streets. I do want to tell you that a project we have budgeted and that you'll talk about tonight is some a water main in Karen in 19th to Karen in the Valley to Penina neighborhood. We'll have action for you tonight on that. Probably will be moved if you so approved not to award the bid. Also in water utility, we have meters budgeted again, as we're still continuing with that project, and mixers for the water towers. So lots of dollars, but probably not a lot of new things to talk about. Same story with wastewater. I won't talk a lot about those projects in the streets because we'll talk about them in conjunction with the streets. Where the budget says SWWW, that means all three are combining and doing work there on the project. We have finally got our switchgear, which we waited about 60 months. So we are finally able to finalize the projects that Doug Russell wrote a grant for after the 2011 flood. Yay! But we did have another flood in between, so, and a pandemic, but who's counting? So we're getting that project moved forward, and then we can really turn our full attention to the plant improvements. So within those plant improvements, we have a new shop building as well as the whole upgrade, which we have 21,000, and then this year, and then subsequently 24,000. 21 million, I wish it was 21,000, and 24 million in the following year. So this project will be one of those bag of potato chips projects. We're not going to get everything that we wanted to for the amount that we were able to secure. So even right now, Kyle and Tanner and HDR and Tanner and his team are talking about, okay, what are absolute projects we're going to do and what are projects we can live with until we can go through the next change and upgrade in our wastewater plant. And that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to inflation and wastewater. I will let you guys know too that because this is a C construction management risk, a CMR, you're not going to see all the packages and all the bids and all the things that you typically would. So you might see some things happening and say, oh, I didn't remember awarding a bid to, this electric company, and you may not in this instance. So we'll bring things to you when there's changes or when we want to talk about, hey, this part of, do we want to focus on this part of the project or that part of the project? But they'll be guiding us through, and we'll be giving you updates on the way when we have our prices and those types of things. Anybody want to talk at all with Kyle about any of his projects?
I've got one quick question for Kyle. In 2028, we've got $2 million allocated for membranes, right? I'm not questioning that. I'm more, my question is how has inflation taken place in your, in the, we know about the street sweeper, I guess, on the water side and the waste side. What kind of effects have taken place?
I would say it's actually worse because of the way the ARPA funds came out, and a lot of those ARPA funds being tied to water and wastewater infrastructure, especially when you start looking at vertical structures and equipment. So the $2 million that we have estimated for those membranes is really a placeholder at this point. not confident in that number, but it was more just to know that, when those membranes get to that 10 years of age, we start replacing them. So I wouldn't hold steady to that number, but yeah, we're definitely seeing inflation. We're going to see that on our wastewater plant project. We're definitely going to be making some cuts to that project to stay on budget, which is, again, one of the reasons why we wanted to go with CMAR, so we had the ability to do that and try to stay on budget.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking me the question. Otherwise, all of us sit around at staff meeting tomorrow and go, really, you spent all that money and you didn't get asked one question? Come on.
I think many of us tell him all the time how expensive of a date he is, so.
The new shop building, that's projected at 9 million, is that right, in '27? And I'm just curious if you'd put it in the same location, or if you plan on...
So we have it for $650,000, the shop building.
You're probably thinking, Brian, maybe the street shop? Yes. Yeah, so long range planning, we have a big conversation, which we'll talk about, I hope, as we move towards our comprehensive plan. What are we going to do? It's the same area Kyle's in, but with our street shop, our fueling station, and all those types of facilities. They're aged, and we need to start really focusing on planning for upgrades. But that number is a placeholder as well, not knowing what it is we'll do or when we might do it.
Yeah, and the shop building was originally going to be part of the wastewater plant project within the CMAR. We've already decided that project we were going to pull out of the CMAR. Part of the reason was the CMAR's benefit really comes in more technical building where you want that contractor's input. A shop building doesn't need to pay that extra CMAR fee. So we pulled that out. The big reason for that shop is really to gate us some access. It'll be faced out towards the road. It'll be outside the fence, the door as well. So when we're accessing our flusher truck and some of our emergency equipment that we want to get out fast, it'll be easier to access, plus we need the space. So that's kind of where we're at with the shop building.
We can circle back, but I'm really excited to talk about solid waste. I'm not going to talk about the cemetery. There's nothing really big in the cemetery to talk about for capital in the short term. But I want to talk about solid waste because one of the things that we're looking at purchasing is an automated truck. So we've gone to semi-automated with the tippers. We're interested to know if the commission is comfortable with us purchasing a automated truck for a couple reasons. The less contact there is, the less prone to injury our people are. We've grown. Is this a way to continue to add more stops to the route without adding more people? Is it a technology that we can duplicate over time and be more efficient? We don't know. We are going to be part of a demo, which will be interesting, but we think that the technology has got to the point where this could be a solution for parts of town. We're never going to be able to probably use the arm in the older parts of town where the streets are narrow and it's difficult, or the alleys are narrow, it's difficult to get. But there's also a safety component. So I actually have a very real concern after riding on the garbage truck about, even though they wear bright colors, about our people on the backs of the truck. And so I think that I think it's worth a purchase, and the truck is necessary whether or not it has that technology. We need a new truck, so we're asking about giving that a shot and testing that in our community.
Are you going to just do it on one truck or multiple trucks?
Well, we need to replace a truck, so this is just one truck with the that's, includes the truck and then the automation along with the cameras and computer system that goes with that, because it's all, it's operated just probably more or less like a, you're still driving the truck, but you're operating it like a system, a computer system or a gaming system, I suppose.
And you mentioned that it's a demo?
Well,
So what does that mean?
No, this would be purchasing our own truck that we would have in our fleet. We're going to attend a demo and participate in a demonstration. So if
Oh, I see.
our guys demo it and they're like, absolutely not for these reasons, then we wouldn't purchase the automated truck. We'd just buy the same truck that we are typically used to. But we'd like to have it budgeted with the opportunity to if they think it's going to work for their.
One of the things that I appreciate about you and your staff is the ability to be innovative, and so I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea also, as long as we have a redundancy built in, so that if it isn't working, that we're still able to.
Put a tipper on
get
it too,
taken care
yeah.
of. Yeah.
I won't talk a lot about joint powers. We share those costs with joint powers. We can talk about them in more detail later or tomorrow if you guys would like to meet tomorrow. The Fox Run capital is now discussed between Todd and Great Life, and they decide what are the things that are necessary at Fox Run, and then we have a share in that capital. When we get to the Summit Activity Center, you can see the cost of the capital there that's being proposed. Lisa and Todd sit down with the school and they talk about what improvements need to be made. And we're going through a large roof replacement with the school multi-year on our joint facility. And you see the costs there and the phases that are brought forward. There's also a large carpet replacement planned and this main theater stage floor remodel planned. I don't know about the condition of that, but I bet Commissioner Minor does. So that is also being planned. We have not reached the point yet where we have our agreement with the school renegotiated, but that is lying in the hands of two capable attorneys, ours and theirs, and so we plan to continue to move forward with that so we can get some different percentages here for our interest of what makes more sense. So it's a little more clear for future commissioners and for the public as to who's responsible for what. We will have now a fast discussion on some of the street projects, and we can talk about then anything else, because I want to leave some time for you to ask me questions or talk about if you want to meet again or the things you want more information on. The chunk that you have in sort of a baby blue are things that we continually budget for every year. We have things like permanent pavement marking we do, and you guys have been approving bids for those types of things, so you're familiar with that. A lot of the projects here are dependent upon some of the work you're going to do tonight when it pertains to the tax increment finance districts. Local street projects in partnership with other departments, including water and wastewater, include Walnut 8th to 15th, 12th Locust to Broadway, and Locust 12th to 15th. An alley on Maple, between Maple and Green. Alley 4th to 6th between Maple and Green. Locust 15th to the north side of the bridge. We have funding in the budget for a public parking lot, should we decide to do an upgrade there. Summit Street 8th to 9th. Birch 8th to Penina. Douglas 19th to 21st as well. We also, you probably saw a lighting project there. That's 4th Street Broadway to Burley lighting project. We have those planned for local streets, and those can be, moved around, but our street department does a good job, I think, of keeping track of the streets and continually monitoring them to say, what are the projects that we really need to focus on next? And so we have a history of doing a lot of street projects and upgrading a lot of street projects, but if you drive anywhere else, you'll appreciate why we do that. We also, and we don't have to leave the 506, but we also have some upgrades in the central garage division of our budget. We have a window, a door rehabilitation, overhead doors, That's again, something that we do also at the transfer station. Overhead doors need to be replaced every year and they keep getting more and more expensive. And then a forklift as well in the central garage. So that was very quick. Sorry that I had to go through that last portion more rapidly. We can talk more about 506 and more about anything in this capital draft, Mayor. And also, only other real direction I need from you all is if we're meeting tomorrow evening or not.
Are there any comments, questions from the commission or anything they'd like to revisit from the CIP with the city manager or staff that are here?
Of course, I'll take questions from, in email, and I can send out information based on those questions to all the commission as well.
And does the commission feel necessary to meet tomorrow at 5:30 to continue the discussion on the budget? I see a lot of no head shakes, city manager.
Okay. Our next step will be taking your information and listening to what else you have to tell us, redrafting the CIP, and then working on our operating. And so we'll stir that soup for a couple of months, and we'll be presenting something to you then at the end of July, towards the end of July, you and the public, and then we'll determine when it's best to have our full budget work session in August.
Thank you. We're to the other business section of the work session. Is there any other business that we need to attend to prior to adjourning the meeting? Seeing none, then I would take a motion to adjourn the work session of June 10th.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye. Aye. Same sign. Nay. Okay, there we go. Motion carries. We have about 9 minutes